What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of THR, the HuMANiTEAM Report, brought to you by Kip Ioane, founder, Teams of Men, lead facilitator, Teams of Men. Really what we're trying to do with this section of videos is make a partner for the monthly newsletter that we put out to everyone on our subscription list. If you haven't done so, comment you'll see in the comments below the video a link to subscribe to our newsletter that goes out monthly to everybody subscribing. Goes out twice a month. There's two editions of it to our founding members of Teams of Men. So if you're a coach, athletic director, principal, vice principal, parent of male student athletes, we're the channel for you. Because we want to make sure you have access in the digital content realm, another medium to digest our work. Obviously, I think if you know me, follow me, there's some telemetry to the podcast, Cross the Streams, our reading out loud segments where we take some of our written work from Medium and use that as a podcast episode. There might be some cross promotion here between those two things. But we're really experimenting and trying to find better ways to deliver our conversation prompts, our curriculum, our thought process, our coaching framework to coaches out there, to athletic stakeholders, to parents that agree with us in our vision, right? That male sports teams and male athletes in team rooms across the country are really the answer to preventing gender violence in all its forms. We think that in helping young men reimagine their manhood, to help them break free from the man box, to empower them to the potential of an enlightened manhood or reimagined a healthy manhood in their team room, spaces they already go to on a regular basis to unlearn, to grow as athletes. If we activate those spaces as coaches and turn them into spaces that they're not just growing as athletes, they're growing in their humanity, we can do a lot of good in the world. And we want to use the fleeting nature of their athletic experience to our advantage. Because remember, folks, these young men are only on these teams, maybe just in middle school, maybe just through high school, maybe just through college before they're out into the real world. And they no longer have regular access to their teammates and coaches they trust. They no longer have regular access to these spaces where they go excited to be there. And also with the understanding that they're going to be asked to unlearn things. Unlearning is growing mantra t-shirts. You can see in the comments below as well in the video description how to get some of our mantra t-shirt swag, but they're going to be asked to grow. And we want to use our time as coaches in these programs to grow these young men. So welcome to the HuMANiTEAM Report, YouTube style, episode 1. First of all, let's launch here with managing complex change. And I'll share my screen here in a second. But this really comes from a model I stumbled across, and sometimes you get in these rabbit holes and you come across all these things that get your brain thinking and finding applications to your work. But this is from Dr. Mary Lippitt in 1987. And it's a formula for managing complex change. And here it is, as you can see on the screen: vision plus skills plus incentives plus resources plus action plan equals actual change. And I put this up and I put it in the newsletter for a number of reasons, because I think so many of us exist in worlds, in departments, maybe in our own programs, in our own homes, where we know we want to change course, where we know we want to activate something different, but we keep finding either excuses or problems with the launch of that change. And I thought this was such a great piece of work by Dr. Lippitt. Vision plus skills plus incentives plus resources plus action plan equals change. And I thought it was really engaging in some of my work last month. I was on the road speaking in a lot of different places with coaches and student athletes and athletic directors and principals and vice presidents in high schools and collegiate levels, where a lot of those components, whether it's vision, skills, incentive, resources, or an actual action plan, were verbalized to me as the stumbling block for folks. For example, skills and resources are usually thrown at me, not maliciously, but as a pain point for coaches who don't want to launch Teams of Men curriculum like, Kip, listen, I don't have fluency or expertise in some of the things you're talking about with healthy manhood or sexual assault prevention or anti-hazing, anti-bullying work, anti-oppression work, healthy relationships. I don't know it. I don't have the skill enough, so I don't want to start. And I think, as you can see, once again, in the visual, if you don't feel like you have the skills, and you take that out of the equation, you get a lot of anxiety. So you don't really start. Or if you don't feel you have the resources, you get a lot of frustration because you don't have the stuff in your hands to actually make things happen. So you get frustration and give up on the project. So I thought it was just a really good visual and really launched a lot of conversations for myself with coaches across the country. Like, no, listen, some of those things you do have, I can help you see that you already have vision, you already have skills, but also that's why you hire teams of men. We bring with us an action plan. We bring with us resources. We bring with us skills into the equation. I think we can fill in the gaps for a lot of folks trying to launch, because we do admit going into this framework where you make intentional planning into your day-to-day with your program. Say it's at minimum 5 times a season. Hopefully we get you up to 20. But I think it is complex. It is a complex change we're asking you to do. So I thought Dr. Lippett's equation, you can go find it, you can find it here, was a really awesome entry point to examine where are you in the equation and where can teams of men help you fill it in so we actually get to change and we avoid all the other false launches. We avoid confusion, we avoid anxiety, we avoid resistance, we avoid frustration, we avoid false starts, and we get to you actually doing the great work you're capable of with your players. Next, I wanted to hit on, so much of our work as coaches requires earning young men's trust. And I stumbled upon, and I'll go back to the screen again, I stumbled upon this thread on Twitter. I'm sorry, it's probably X now, right? From Alex Brogdon. Building trust quickly is a superpower. Here's how, from an FBI behavior expert. And I won't read the whole thing to you, but I think so much of what you do as a coach could benefit from some of this in the thread. Whether that's slowing our speech in stressful situations, what is our nonverbal fluency and our nonverbal language that we display to our kids, time constraints, asking for help, removing ego from some of our conversations, validating our kids as human beings, not just as players or stats. I think all those were so powerful for me and resonated and allowed me to have some conversations that some of the things, sometimes when you look at these lists, and I know you get inundated with things throughout the season, throughout the off season, the preseason, but I think sometimes going through lists and recognizing that maybe not all 8 in a bullet list is for me, but maybe 2 or 3 on there I'm already doing, and that gives me validation that I'm doing the right work as a coach. I think that's important. So we'll make sure you check out that list. We'll put the link there too in some of our time breakouts for the episode. But I think that's a great spot, because what you do as a coach to get the best out of young players requires them to trust you. And that's a hill we all have to climb in our programs. Next up, in one of the presentations I gave to a high school coaches clinic out here on the West Coast, I really tried to dive in and share with coaches that, when I work with teams and individuals, most of them all are on the same page of, hey, I can identify stuff that our guys shouldn't do. I can tell you, Kip, behaviors, conducts, value systems that we need to change. And I've told them, Kip, I've told them don't. I've told them I'm not going to stand for it. I put up a sign that says don't. And I know I erred in this too in my 20 years as an NCAA college basketball coach, that, hey, I already told them no. But I also have evolved and figured out the limitations that don't has. Like, just saying don't really doesn't do anything. Parents, if you're watching this, we're all aware that we've said don't 1,000 times. Coaches, think about a situation in your game, in the actual game day, game night, on the field, on the pitch, on the court, where I know you've said don't turn it over. I know you've said don't not communicate. I know you said don't throw that ball out of bounds. I know you said don't be too aggressive on that first pitch. And these things still happen. So we know the limits of just saying don't. And I also want to emphasize that carries over into character development. That carries over into the work Teams of Men wants you to do. It's not enough for you to say, I told my guys don't be bad. I told my guys don't be disrespectful. You got to dive into that. You got to have more dosage. You got more exposures. You got to have more reps. You got to have more discussions, which is part of what we do. But don't isn't enough. And I don't want us to settle for that. I want you to self-examine, where in my program do I have a sign and I can tell myself, oh, I said it one time. I got to revisit. I got to go back to that and do more. Don't isn't enough. Hey, and let's wrap up real quick this first edition of the HuMANiTEAM Report with this. This is a quote from bell hooks, and obviously all of us are better off if we read bell hooks daily. But the first act of violence that the patriarchy demands of males is not violence towards women. Instead, patriarchy demands of all males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves. If an individual is not successful in emotionally crippling himself, he can count on patriarchal men to enact rituals of power that will assault his self-esteem, from bell hooks. And I use this because I've had a lot of discussions on my travels and with all the great coaches that we've worked with, where they're really concerned and they're struggling to find the balance between, Kip, I don't want to be these dudes' friends. I don't want to be these kids' friends. But you're asking me to do a lot of these deep dive conversations and create spaces where I got to be vulnerable and share. And I always try to push back on them that boundaries are required. I absolutely agree that there are boundaries we need to set up as a coach with our players. There's a healthy world of healthy relationships between players and coaches. But I don't know. I think some of us go too far and we cut off the part of us that is fun, the part of us that is engaging, the part of us that is authentic, the part of us that our kids can connect with, all in the name of not crossing the friend boundary. And I don't think we need to do that. I think it's rooted in some of this man box ideas that those we've been socialized to, that any version of me that is emotional is not worthy of showing. And I think that's the opposite of what Teams of Men wants to teach you and engage you with your players in, is that the more you show your humanity, the more you show your vulnerabilities in your team room with your guys, the more connection you're going to get. And you cannot activate these players on the field, on the court, on the pitch to their full potential if you do not have authentic connection. There'll be a level of their talent that they can always go to, and they're basically in robot mode, and you're a mandator screaming and yelling, but you won't get the true best version of them until they trust you, until they know you, until they feel seen by you. And I think this quote from bell hooks and the work we try to do encourages them to show and embrace their emotional selves and find ways to process emotion, to be emotionally fluent, but also encourages you coaches out there to connect with them rather than command them. I think there's so many of our life decisions where, just think about it. The input and the guidance you seek is from people you trust, people you have friendships with. Your players are no different. They don't want to go to a stranger. They don't want to go to a commander for help, whether it's on the court or off the court. They want to go to somebody they see as a friend. And I think that's not a bad thing. Hey, and that's it. That quick wrap up. It's a little bit longer form than the usual shorts we put up on the channel. So trying to give you guys a better feel and a more interactive medium for you to engage with us. So make sure you hit the subscribe button to this channel. Our YouTube channel has been jumping lately. We're closing in on 1,000 followers. We'd love to get to that mark. And then also, like I said, in the video descriptions, I'll try to put as many ways to follow us as possible, and some links to timestamps for different things. The managing complex change formula we went over, maybe the bell hooks quote can help some of you. But excited to be here. We'll try to do these weekly, if not bi-weekly. The HuMANiTEAM Report from Teams of Men.